The mechanic who chose hard over Jobin, a dusty roadside garage on the outskirts of Chicago. 35-year-old Ethan Reyes worked tirelessly to make ends meet. A humble mechanic with oil-stained hands and a heart too big for his paycheck. Ethan was known around town for helping anyone in need, often for free. One stormy afternoon, just as he was closing shop, an ambulance rolled to a stop across the street, completely stalled. The lights were still flashing, and the siren gave a dying whimper before silence took over. Instinct took over. Ethan didn't hesitate. Grabbing his toolbox, he sprinted across the street in the pouring rain. The paramedics were frantic. "We've got a critical patient. We need to move." Ethan crawled under the ambulance without a second thought. In 15 minutes, he had bypassed a failed fuel pump with a makeshift solution. The engine roared back to life. The ambulance peeled away toward the hospital, leaving Ethan soaked, covered in grease and relieved. But his act of heroism didn't sit well with his employer, Mr. Langley, who believed Ethan had abandoned a high-paying client waiting for a luxury car repair. He walked off the job for charity. "You're fired, Reyes." Ethan was heartbroken. He packed up his few belongings and headed home, not knowing what would come next. 3 days later, a sleek black Rolls-Royce pulled up to the tiny apartment complex where Ethan lived. A sharply dressed woman stepped out, poised, elegant, and unmistakably powerful. She was Ariella Vaughn, the reclusive billionaire, philanthropist and CEO of Vaughn Medical Enterprises. She knocked on Ethan's door. "Are you Ethan Reyes?" He blinked. Yeah, you saved my life." Ethan stared, confused. "I was the woman in that ambulance. I had a heart complication. If you hadn't gotten us moving, I wouldn't have made it in time. I owe you more than thanks." Still stunned, Ethan stammered. I just did what anyone would have known." "You did what only someone brave and kind would do." Ariella offered him her card. "Come work for me. Head mechanic for my foundation's mobile hospital fleet. Triple your old salary, full benefits. And if you're up for it, I want you to help me build a nationwide emergency service program that doesn't leave people stranded." Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. Fired for doing the right thing now, being rewarded for it. Ethan stood frozen at the doorway as Ariella Vaughn's limousine pulled away. Her card trembled slightly in his calloused hands. Part of him still thought it was a dream, but it wasn't. The next morning, he called the number and everything changed. Within a week, Ethan found himself flown to New York City, his first time on a plane. Vaughn Medical's headquarters were towering and modern, filled with doctors, engineers, and visionaries. And at the top of it all was Ariella, now fully recovered and more determined than ever to expand her mission. "We need people who fix with their hearts first, hands second," she told him with a warm smile. "You're not just a mechanic anymore, Ethan. You're a builder of hope." The training and the turnaround. Ethan was enrolled in leadership courses, given access to advanced tools and technologies, and introduced to a diverse team of engineers and medics. At first he felt like a fish out of water. Everyone wore suits or lab coats, he wore overalls. But Ariella never let him forget his value. "They've got education," she said once, "but you've got experience that can't be taught." Soon, Ethan began designing improved roadside response vehicles and ambulance that could handle rough terrain, cold start in extreme weather, and carry on-board diagnostics. He suggested simple cost-saving changes based on his years in the garage. One idea alone saved the foundation millions. His title became Director of Field Operations. He oversaw 80 mobile units across 12 states. What began as a single act of kindness had grown into a national emergency support system, a reunion, and a message months later. A press conference was held at the hospital where Ariella had first been saved. Ethan was there as guest of honor. But as he stood on the stage, surrounded by cameras and applause, he noticed someone in the crowd, Mr. Langley, his former boss. Their eyes met. Ethan stepped up to the microphone. "I was fired for helping someone. At the time, I thought it ruined my life, but it gave me one." He paused, looking directly at Langley. "No good deed is ever wasted. Sometimes, what looks like a step back is really the beginning of something bigger." The crowd erupted. Today, Ethan travels across the country, training young mechanics and launching mobile clinics. Ariella and he have become close friends, some rumors say even more. She often says, "You didn't just fix an engine that day, Ethan, you jump-started my life." And he always replies with a smile, "Funny, I think you did the same for me." Because fate doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes, it walks in with dirty boots and a wrench, and leaves the world better than it found it. Months passed, and Ethan Reyes was now a household name in humanitarian circles. Interviews, magazine features, and talk show appearances came in waves, but he never let it go to his head. He still wore his favorite old jacket, still kept a wrench in his pocket like a lucky charm, and still said, "I'm just a mechanic who got lucky helping the right person." But Ariella Vaughn saw something in him that went far beyond luck. Dinner that changed everything. One evening, after a long day inspecting a new mobile unit prototype, Ariella invited Ethan to her penthouse. It wasn't just any dinner, it was quiet, personal, home-cooked. She had made pasta, and awkwardly admitted, "It's from a box. But it's edible, I promise." They laughed. For the first time, Ethan saw not the billionaire CEO, but just Ariella, the woman who had once been moments from death in the back of a stalled ambulance, and now stood radiant and alive in front of him. They talked about their pasts, how Ethan had raised his younger sister after their parents passed, how Ariella had built an empire after being told no over and over in male-dominated boardrooms. Two fighters, two survivors. As the night drew on, Ethan leaned against the balcony, overlooking the glowing city skyline. Do you ever think about how one moment can change everything? Ariella stood beside him, her voice soft. Every day. And I think that moment was you. An unexpected proposal weeks later. Ariella held a gala to launch a massive new initiative, the Reyes Emergency Response Grant, aimed at funding, training, and employment for underprivileged youth in mechanical and medical careers. As she stood on stage, she surprised everyone by inviting Ethan up. But what came next shocked even him. She turned to him with a small box in her hand. Gasps filled the room. Ethan Reyes, you saved my life, and then helped me rebuild it. Now I want you in every chapter that follows. Will you marry me? The room went silent. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. I thought I came here to fix engines, he whispered, but turns out I was here to find my purpose, and my heart. He nodded slowly. Yes, yes, I will. Final chapter, love, legacy, and the open road. Their wedding was small, held in the same town where it all began. The local fire department brought the original ambulance, now fully a surprise, the same one Ethan fixed on that rainy day. Today, Ethan and Ariella live a life of love and service. Together, they run Von Reyes Foundation, funding thousands of scholarships, mobile units, and emergency infrastructure projects across the globe. And in Ethan's office, hanging above his desk, is an old grease-stained sign from his first garage job. It simply reads, "Always help first," because that's what real heroes do, even when no one's watching, even if it costs them everything, because one day, it might just save a billionaire and change the world.